Guess I hope if I unmute myself. Scuff number 1. Huzzah, huzzah. Welcome everyone for coming in. Oh, that says I've got 33 more seconds. Okay. I've got food. Oh, I've got snacks anyway. Okay. Now that's over. Uh-oh. She redeems to turn back on today. Okay, so, yeah. I do have the sound alerts to turn back on. They're not going to record because I don't record them for my storytelling. Why am I still hearing the music? Kel's there. Hi, Kel. Okay. So my clock and my microwave does not match. My microwave clock does not match the clock on my computer. I guess that's a good thing. But anyway, how's everyone doing? How's it hanging? Well and loose, I hope. I guess. I don't know. If you didn't already know, I've got a book. Well, you might not know yet. If I can finish chewing. Is that I went ahead and broke down and experimented with the Stream Elements store feature. And I couldn't think of anything better to do than to do a bit bag. So if the link ever pops up, it's on a timer, so it'll randomly show up whenever it feels like, apparently. Where is it? Merch. Let me go ahead and post a link now. I'll just post a message because it's funny. But this message here it will go to the Stream Elements merch page. Oh, can't discount. Oh, can't fucking type. Oh, it works. Who knows? But if you go to that link, the only thing listed in my store is a bag. with my lovely company logo on it. Because why the hell not? Personally, I think $30 is a bit much for a bag. But the logo was embroidered on. And I just thought it'd be cool to have. So. And it's not something I had to pay for the merchandise rights for. But anyway, we. No, Kangaskhan escaped. Damn it. Why is my chat window back there so delayed? Do I have it set up wrong? Cheese. You know, the Buddha stuff. And what's my most recent message now? Can I fix that? No, it's there. Let's say, why am I cutting off? Oh, it's because I'm behind my computer. Duh. Okay, Kel is actually talking about the final week of September when I will be doing my subathon. Because at the times listed as when I will try to start. So I would ask not to get any gift subs until then, just so you can save yourself the money. I mean, it's only cutting out Twitch. It's not cutting me out any. I mean, the regular subs are discounted all the month. The gift subs aren't discounted until that week. So that would be the opportune moment to do gift subs. For me, or for any of you other streamers that you like. And now Kel is posting where all you can find me. I swear she has a mind of her own. That is my Twitter account. That is my YouTube account where all of my older streams do end up. Oh, well, now she got to the merch bag. So there's that too. So it's really kind of cool. I like the merch bag. I mean, what better way to carry a wolf's books around than in a gray wolf rare and magical book bag? Is my volume up? Because that's seem awfully quiet to myself. Or maybe it's just me. Oh, that's why. My volume was actually turned down. And I have my microphone tilted upwards and a little out as to not pick up the fan blowing on me. Because if I'm going to have white noise in my stream, I would just be the one controlling it. But it is Friday night. That means it is fairy tale time. It also means I may or may not have been drinking. Which may or may not be why I'm eating cheese. I wish I had some wine, but the wine that I really liked is next to impossible to find anymore. And as much as I would love to put it on my throne list, well, no one gets me off anything on my throne list. So it would be really nice if someone were to give me that microphone, then I could try to figure out how to do everything else. As it is, I am doing my streamathon on September 26th. There is a poll going on right now for how long of one I'm going to do. Let me see if I can find that link. Where is my poll? Oh, there it is. Okay. So at the moment, there are 2 votes for me to try to do a 6-hour day. Well, 2 6-hour days, which will be a big stretch for my streaming. Because I've usually done the storytelling one, which are usually 2 or 2.5 at the most, and then when I do my gaming ones, I'm usually doing good to go 4 hours uninterrupted. And people were voting for me to try to do 6-hour streams. Which, let me pull up. No, let me. Have not been to the theater for a while, so let's go to the We'll have theater? Yeah, I have theater. Okay. So let me pull up the information here. I have to make a source for it. Okay. This is on my desktop. Okay. Just some cards. Just. Okay. So, here we go. And there it is. Hey, I'm gone. Where am I? I'm here. Okay. Okay. So, subathon. September 26th. I'm going to try to start around noon. My time, anyway. I've already told family that I'm going to be tied up, but well, you know how they are. No, well, you don't because you've never met them. But they're the goals and they're the games. So let me. I can't pause it. Never mind. Oh. And of course, I didn't do the slides separately. God damn it. But anyway, at 10 subs, I'm going to hold a raffle for an autographed and personalized copy of the Artless paperback. I know it's like literally the base model, but it's not the best. Returning chatter. I can't see what it is. So kind of wishing I had made my thing so I could pause it. But at 20 subs, I'm going to do a raffle for an autographed and personalized hard copy. Oh, no, the 20 is the 20 is the autographed and personalized paperback copy of the artwork book. $30 will be the autographed copy of the hardback. If I manage to make it up to 40 subs, which in the last week Oni has donated 10 subs himself, so I'm pretty sure I might be able to make it. When I get to 40, it will be an autographed and personalized copy that I had printed specifically for the subathon of the Grey Wolf edition. I mean, there's actually a personalized page in it saying, "Congratulations, you won raffle, yada yada yada." And of course, I'm going to write my own notes in it because I do things. I want to put the goals up to 60, but I don't really expect to make it past 40, honestly. But if we manage to get 50, I am raffling off what is essentially the second copy that's ever been printed. It is my author proof that I wrote all my notes and everything else that I need to fix in it. And I literally wrote myself notes in the book. But I'll go ahead and autograph and personalize that one. And I'll send that one. And it's actually a large one because my current books are 6" by 9". My proof that Amazon denied me being able to print is a 7 by 10. And that's the one that I'm auctioning at 50 subs. Well, not auctioning, raffling at 50 subs. If for some insane reason, I actually make it to 60, I'm going to put a dedication in book 2 to whoever wins the raffle. There is a goal beyond that, but I don't have my hopes for it. Because if I make it to 70, I may write you into one of the books. It'd pretty much be a lore interaction between our characters. I think it would be cool. I don't expect to make it to 70. That's why I didn't either bother writing it down. But I just think it would be awesome if I made it to 40. And of course, then there's the games I'm going to be playing. Skyrim, I'm fairly sure I can spend a whopping 6 hours playing. The game Storytime, it's fairly short because it is choosing your own version of how a story goes, and it is fairly adult, despite being told in story by kids. Now the game A Wolf Among Us, I've played before. I had to re-download it, but it's definitely along my character types. Because it is fairy tale characters in the real world. They have their own separate community, and the Big Bad Wolf, or Bigby, ends up being sheriff, Snow White's mayor, all sorts of interesting things on that. And this is pretty much based around the Big Bad Wolf, or Bigby. I have actually read a lot of the comics, but A Wolf Among Us is a Telltale game, and I'm not really that big on them. But it's, appropriate for me to play that kind of game. And of course, Fable, well, it's Fable. And I wanted to go ahead and just play the original one, but I have the Anniversary, I know will work on my system. So it will be playing Fable Anniversary. But you can die in these games. Well, except Storytime. And I am admittedly not that great of a player. So I guess I need to figure out how to do one of the wheel things. Because I gave myself a list of punishments. I haven't yet decided if I'm going to do it like every death or every 5 deaths. I hope not to die that often, but it happens. So it may be a case of every death, I do one of the beans. Every 5, I do a shot. That way I don't have to do the shots that very often. If I do 10, I will attempt, probably very badly, to play music. It'll be interesting. I have a book of music that I will try to sight read and play on my bass ukulele. And this is more or less punishment for me not practicing. But you guys get to hear me play. So is it punishment for me or punishment for you? But anyway, it is Friday night, and it is almost 9:30. So I should probably get to the fairy tales. Because it is, Friday night, and Friday night is fairy tale. So, let's go to the library. This is the book we are reading from, Beauty and the Beast and Other Classic Fairy Tales. I would say that the book itself is copywritten, but all the stories within it are not. So, I can read them as much as I want. If ever there was a good reason to read story tales, it's because it's Friday. And if anyone recalls the reason I started doing this, I started doing the Friday Night Fairy Tales on Valentine's Day. And I did it on Valentine's Day because I set it up that I was babysitting my niece and nephew while their parents went on a date night. And the habit just kind of stuck. Unfortunately, kids are grown up. My niece is now 20 and my nephew is 18, so I don't have kids to read to anymore. So I read to you guys. I have one piece of cheese left. I will save that for break, perhaps. But I should probably get into the story. First, well, I'd be able to get the first story done in half an hour. First story is 6 pages long, so we are good. Because I really don't like ads interrupting stories. I have a stripy little tabby next to me as my audience. And she does tend to show up when I'm reading stories. Or when I have cheese. I have both. So she probably wants cheese. And she just left. And as a reminder, I do have sound alerts on. I'll hear them. The stream will hear them. They won't be on the bot. Because I really do save all of these as audiobooks on my YouTube channel. Which is also why I tend not to react to chat when I'm reading a story. I'll answer when the story's over. So, let's get into it. Our first story for the night. Sorry, I have a fly buzzing around me. The Brown Bear of Norway. From the Lilac Fairy book. There once was a king in Ireland, and he had 3 daughters, and very nice princesses they were. And one day, when they and their father were walking on the lawn, the king began to joke with them, and to ask them whom they would like to be married to. "I'll have the king of Ulster for a husband," says one. "And I'll have the king of Munster," says another. "And," says the youngest, "I'll have no husband but the Brown Bear of Norway." For a nurse of hers used to be telling her of an enchanted prince that she called by that name. And she fell in love with him. And his name was the first name on her tongue, and for the very night before, she was dreaming of him. Well, one laughed and another laughed, and they joked with the princess all the rest of the evening. But that very night she woke up out of her sleep in a great hall that was lighted up with 1,000 lamps. The richest carpets were on the floor, and the walls were covered with cloth of gold and silver. And the place was full of grand company, and the very beautiful prince she saw in her dreams was there. And it wasn't a moment till he was on one knee before her, telling her how much he loved her, and asked her, wouldn't she be his queen? Well, she hadn't the heart to refuse him, and married they were that same evening. "Now, my darling," he said when they were left by themselves, "you must know that I am under enchantment. A sorceress that had a beautiful daughter wished for me for her son-in-law. But the mother got power over me, and when I refused to wed her daughter, she made me take the form of a bear by day. And I was to continue so till a lady would marry me of her own free will, and endure 5 years of great trials after. Well, when the princess woke in the morning, she missed her husband from her side, and spent the day very sadly. But as soon as the lamps were lighted in the grand hall, where she was sitting on a sofa covered with silk, the folding doors flew open, and he was sitting by her side the very next minute. So they spent another happy evening, but he warned her that whenever she began to tire him or ceased to have faith in him, they would be parted forever, and he'd be obliged to marry the witch's daughter. So she got used to find him absent day after day, and they spent a happy 12 months together. And at last a beautiful little boy was born, and happy as she was before, she was twice as happy now, for she had her child to keep her company in the day when she couldn't see her husband. At last, one evening, when herself and himself and her child were sitting with the window open because it was a sultry night, in flew an eagle and took the infant's sash in his beak and flew up in the air with him. She screamed and was going to throw herself out the window after him, but the prince caught her and looked at her very seriously. She bethought of what he soon said after their marriage, and she stopped the cries and complaints that were on her tongue. She spent her days very lonely for another 12 months, when a beautiful little girl was sent to her. Then she thought to herself she'd have a sharp eye about her this time, so she never would allow a window to be more than a few inches open. But all her care was in vain. Another evening, when they were all so happy, and the prince dangling the baby, a beautiful greyhound, before them, took the child out of the father's hand, and was out the door before you could wink. This time she shouted and ran out of the room, but there were some of the servants in the next room, and all declared that neither child nor dog passed out. She felt, somehow, as if it was her husband's fault. But she still kept command over herself and didn't once reproach him. When the third child was born, she would hardly allow a window or a door to be left open for a moment. But she wasn't the nearer to keep the child to herself. They were sitting one evening by the fire when a lady appeared standing by them. The princess opened her eyes with a great fright and stared at her, and while she was doing so, the lady wrapped a shawl around the baby that was sitting in its father's lap, and either sank through the ground with it or went up through the wide chimney. This time, the mother kept to bed for a month. "My dear," she said to her husband, when she was beginning to recover, I think I'd feel better if I was to see my father and mother and sisters once more. If you give me leave to go home for a few days, I'd be glad. Very well, said he. I will do that. And whenever you feel inclined to return, only mention your wish when you lie down at night. The next morning, when she awoke, she found herself in her own old chamber in her father's palace. She rang the bell, and in a short time she had her mother and father and married sisters back with her. And they laughed till they cried for joy at finding her safe and back home. In time, she told them all that had happened to her, and they didn't know what to advise her to do. She was as fond of her husband as ever, and she said that she was sure that he couldn't help letting the children go. But still, she was afraid beyond the world to have another child torn from her. Understandable. Well, the mother and sisters consulted a wise woman that used to bring eggs to the castle, for they had great faith in her wisdom. She said the only plan was to secure the bear's skin, that the prince was obliged to put it on every morning, and get it burned. And then he couldn't help being a man night and day. And the enchantment should be at an end. Should. So they all persuaded her to do that, and she promised she would. And after 8 days she felt so great a longing to see her husband again, that she made the wish that same night. And when she woke, 3 hours after, she was in her husband's palace, and he himself was watching over her. There was great joy on both sides, and they were happy for many days. Now she began to think how she never minded her husband leaving her in the morning, and how she never found him neglected to leave her a sweet drink out of a cold cup just as she was going to bed. One night she contrived not to drink any of it, though she pretended to do so, and she was wakeful enough in the morning and saw her husband passing out through the panel in the wainscot, though she kept her eyelids nearly closed. The next night she got a few drops of the sleepy possets that she had saved the evening before, and put it into her husband's night drink, and that made him sleep sound enough. She got up after midnight and passed through the panel and found a beautiful brown bear's hide hanging in the corner. Then she stole back and went down to the parlor fire and put the hide into the middle of it till it was fine ashes. Then she lay down by her husband, gave him a kiss on the cheek, and fell asleep. If she was to live 100 years, she'd never forget how she wakened the next morning and found her husband looking down on her with misery and anger in his face. "Unhappy woman," said he, "you have separated us forever. Why hadn't you patience for 5 years?" "I'm now obliged, whether I like or no, to go a 3 days' journey to the witch's castle and marry her daughter." That skin was my guard. You have burned it. And the eggwife that gave you the counsel was the witch herself. I won't reproach you. Your punishment will be severe without it. Farewell, forever. He kissed her for the last time, and was off the next minute. Walking as fast as they could, she shouted after him. Then, seeing there was no use, she dressed herself and pursued him. He never stopped, nor stayed, nor looked back, and she still kept him in sight. And when he was on the hill, she was in the hollow. And when he was in the hollow, she was on the hill. Her life was almost leaving her, when just as the sun was setting, he turned up a lane and went into a little house. She crawled up after him, and when she got inside, there was a beautiful little boy on his knees, and he kissing and hugging him. "Oh, dear, my poor darling," says he. "This is your eldest child. And there," he says, pointing to a woman that was looking on with a smile on his face, "is the eagle that carried him away." She forgot all her sorrows in a moment, hugging her child and laughing and crying over him. The woman washed their feet and rubbed them with an ointment that took all the soreness out of their bones and made them as fresh as a daisy. Next morning, just before sunrise, he was up and prepared to be off. "Here," he said to her, "is a thing which may be of use to you. It's a scissors, and whatever stuff you cut with it will be turned into silk. The moment the sun rises, I'll lose all memory of yourself and the children. But I'll get it at sunset again. Farewell." But he wasn't far gone till she was in sight of him again, leaving her boy behind. It was the same today as yesterday. Their shadows went before them in the morning and followed them in the evening. He never stopped, and she never stopped, and the sun was setting. He turned up another lane, and there they found their daughter. It was all joy and comfort again till morning, and then on the third day's journey commenced. But before he started, he gave her a comb, and told her that whatever she used it, pearls and diamonds would fall from her hair. Still, he had his memory from sunset to sunrise, but from sunrise to sunset, he travelled on under the charm, and never threw his eye behind. This night they came to where the youngest baby was, and the next morning, just before sunrise, the prince spoke to her for the last time. "Here, my poor wife," he said, "is a little hand-reel, and a gold thread that has no end, and half of our marriage ring. If you ever get to my house and put your half-ring to mine, I shall recollect you. There is a wood yonder, and the moment I enter it, I shall forget everything that ever happened between us, just as if I was born yesterday. Farewell, my dear wife, and child forever." Just then the sun rose, and away he walked towards the wood. She saw it open before him and close after him, and when she came up, she could no more get in than she could break through a stone wall. She wrung her hands and shed tears, but then she recollected herself and cried out, "Wood, I charge you by my three magic gifts, the scissors, the comb, and the reel, to let me through." and it opened. And she went along a walk until she came in sight of a palace, and a lawn, and a woodman's cottage, on the edge of the wood where it came nearest to the palace. She went into the lodge and asked the woodman and his wife to take her into their service. They were not willing at first, but she told them she would ask for no wages, and would give them diamonds and pearls and silk stuffs and gold thread whenever they wished for them. And then they agreed to let her stay. It wasn't long till she heard how a young prince that was just arrived was living in the palace of the young mistress. He seldom stirred abroad, and every one that saw him remarked how silent and sorrowful he went about, like a person that was searching for some lost thing. The servants and conceited folk at the big house began to take notice of the beautiful young woman at the lodge, and to annoy her with their impudence. The head footman was the most troublesome, and at last she invited him to come and take tea with her. Oh, how rejoiced he was, and how he bragged of it in the servants' hall. Well, the evening came, and the footman walked into the lodge and was shown to her sitting room, for the lodge-keeper and his wife stood in great awe of her, and gave her 2 nice rooms for herself. Well, he sat down as stiff as a ramrod, and was talking in a grand style about the great doings in the castle, while she was getting the tea and toast ready. "Oh," she says to him, "would you put your hand out of the window and cut off a sprig or 2 of honeysuckle?" He got up in great glee and put out his hand and head, and she said, "By the virtue of my magic gifts, let a pair of horns spring out of your head and sing to the lodge." Just as she wished, so it was. They sprung from the front of each ear and met at the back. Oh, the poor wretch! And how he bawled and roared, and the servants that used to be boasting were soon frolicking from the castle, and grinning and huzzahing and beating tunes on tongs and shovels and pans, and he cursing and swearing, and the eyes ready to start out of his head, and he was so black in the face and kicking out his legs behind him like mad. At last she pitied him and removed the charm, and the horns dropped down to the ground, and he would have killed her on the spot, only he was as weak as water, as his fellow servants came in and carried him off to the big house. Well, some way or another, the story came to the ears of the prince, and he strolled down that way. She had only the dress of a countrywoman on her as she sat down sewing in the window. But that did not hide her beauty, and he was greatly puzzled after he took a good look, just as the body is puzzled to know whether something happened to him when he was young or if he only dreamt it. Well, the witch's daughter heard about it too, and she came to see the strange girl. And what did she find her doing but cutting out a pattern from a gown of brown paper? And as she cut away, the paper became the richest silk she ever saw. The witch's daughter looked on with greedy eyes and said, "What would you be satisfied to take for the scissors?" "I'll take nothing," she said, "but leave to one night outside the prince's chamber." Well, the proud lady fired up and was going to say something dreadful, but the scissors kept on cutting, and the silk growing richer and richer every inch. So she promised what the girl had asked her. When night came on, she was led into the palace and lay down until the prince was much in a dead sleep that all she did couldn't wake him. She sung this verse to him. Sighing and sobbing, but she kept singing it all night long, and it was all in vain. For long years I was married to thee, 3 sweet babies I bore to thee, brown bear of Norway, unto. At the first dawn, the proud lady was in the chamber, and led her away, and the footman of the horns put out his tongue at her as she was quitting the palace. So there was no luck so far, but the next day the prince passed by again and looked at her, and saluted her kindly, as a prince might a farmer's daughter, and passed one, and soon the witch's daughter passed on, and found her combing her hair, and pearls and diamonds dropping out of it. Well, another bargain was made, and the princess spent another night of sorrow. She left the castle at daybreak, and the footman was at his post and enjoyed his revenge. The third day the prince went by and stopped to talk with a strange woman. He asked her could he do anything to serve her, and she said he might. She asked him did he ever wake at night. It said that he often did, but that during the last 2 nights he was listening to a sweet song in his dreams and could not wake, and that the voice was one he must have known and loved in some other world long ago. Says she, did you drink any sleepy posset either of these evenings before you went to bed? I did, he said. The 2 evenings my wife gave me something to drink, but I don't know whether it was a sleepy posset or not. Well, Prince, she said, as you say you would wish to oblige me, you can do it by not tasting any drink tonight. I will not, says he. And then he went on his walk. Well, the great lady came down soon after the prince, and found the stranger using her hand reel, and winding great threads of gold off of it. And the third bargain was made. And that evening the prince was lying on his bed at twilight, and his mind much disturbed, and the door was opened, and his princess walked, and down sat she by his side, saying, for long years I was married to thee, 3 sweet babies I bore to thee, brown bear of Norway, come to me. Brown bear of Norway, he said, I don't understand you. Don't you remember, Prince, that I was your wedded wife for 4 years? I do not, said he, but I'm sure I wish it was so. Don't you remember our 3 babies that are still alive? Show me them. My mind is all a heap of confusion. Look for the half of our marriage ring that hangs to your neck, and fit this to it. He did so, and the same moment the charm was broken. His full memory came back on him, and he flung his arms around his wife's neck, and both burst into tears. Well, there was a great cry outside, and the castle walls were heard splitting and cracking. Everyone in the castle was alarmed and made their way out. The prince and princess went with the rest, and by the time all were safe on the lawn, down came the building and made the ground tremble for miles around. No one ever saw the witch and her daughter afterwards. It was not long till the prince and the princess had their children with them, and then they set out for their palace. The kings of Ireland, of Munster and Ulster, and their wives soon came to visit them, and may everyone that deserves it be as happy as the brown bear of Norway and his family. Damn it, the ads hit right near the end. So if you missed it, if you're not a sub, the prince had come down the first time and saw her using the scissors. The special princess, the one that married him, came down, saw the scissors, and requested the scissors and asked what there would be in trade for them. But the good princess said that she wouldn't sell them, but would trade them to sleep in the prince's chamber. So, while she was in there, the prince was asleep, she sang to him the song that I badly sang. He didn't wake up. So she went back defeated, and everyone in the palace was really glad to see her getting kicked out again. So, next day, the prince walks by the farmhouse and sees our princess combing out her hair and sees, of course, the jewels coming out of it. He just kind of bids her, what's up, have a good day, and goes on. The evil princess comes down, sees this happening, sees the jewels coming out of the comb, again tries to make a deal. Our princess wouldn't have it, just says that she would only trade it to her for a night in the prince's chamber. Same thing happens the first time. She goes in, sings, he sleeps through it. She gets the walk of shame, and goes back to the farmhouse. Third day, the prince comes by, talks to her again. He's always nice and cordial. He actually stands around and talks to her a little bit. Then he goes on his merry way. Well, of course, evil princess comes down, sees our good princess winding gold thread off of the spool. And of course, she wants the spool. Same deal. Of course, she agrees to it. But here's the kicker. When the prince was talking to our wonderful princess, she asked him if he ever drinks anything to help him sleep. She said that he normally doesn't, but the last 2 nights his wife has brought him something to help him sleep, and he slept the whole night through, but he kept dreaming about a beautiful woman singing to him. So, of course, our princess tells him, well, I'll have to do her voice. Well, if you get another one tonight, do not taste it. Just pretend that you have. So, of course, night 3. The prince is not sleeping very well. His mind is all over the place because he's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. In comes our princess. He tries to pretend to be asleep. She sings the song. He recognizes the name of it, well, the Brown Bear of Norway. But he does not remember anything about being the Brown Bear or his wife or his previous life. But she has her half of their wedding ring. He has the other half. And I think you all came back after the ad after that, so you should know what happens. Ring goes together. Memory is fled back because spell is broken. Happily ever after, yada yada yada. Anyway. That's probably the worst I've ever sent up a story, but it's not the first story that has that kind of lead into it. And it's interesting how many different stories do have that subject in it. This is in the beast section of the book because the main character is cursed to be a bear, apparently. But the transit while sleeping happens in Beauty of the Beast, and a lot of the stuff is just over and over again. She literally married a fairy tale prince, though, because it was a story that she was told by her maid. I'll tell you right now, I don't turn into a human. I am not cursed. Thank you. Although, if anyone wants to do fan art of me as a human, by all means, do what you want. Curious. Anyway, our next story. Let me check something. This is about. I'm trying to make sure what pronouns to use in the story. Okay. I have to find out who Janni was. So, our next story. Janni and the Draken. From the Grey Fairy book. Once there was a man who shunned the world and lived in the wilderness. He owned nothing but a flock of sheep, whose milk and wool he sold, and so procured himself bread to eat. He also carried wooden spoons, and sold them. He had a wife and one little girl, and after a long time his wife had another child. The evening that it was born, the man went to the nearest village to fetch a nurse, and on the way he met a monk who begged him for a night's lodging. This the man willingly granted, and took him home with him. There being no one far nor near to baptize the child, the man asked the monk to do him this service, and the child was given the name Janni. In the course of time, Janni's parents died, and he and his sister were left alone in the world. Soon affairs went badly with them, so they determined to wander away to seek their fortune. In packing up, the sister found a knife which the monk had left for his godson, and this she gave to her brother. Then they went on their way, taking with them the 3 sheep which were all that remained of their flocks. After wandering for 3 days, they met a man with 3 dogs who proposed that they should exchange animals, he taking the sheep and they the dogs. The brother and sister were quite pleased at this arrangement, and after the exchange was made, they separated and went their different ways. Janni and his sister, of course, in time came to a great castle, in which dwelt 40 Draken, who, when they heard that Janni had come, fled 40 fathoms underground. So Janni found the castle deserted, and abode there with his sister, and every day went out to hunt with the weapons of the Draken that they had left in the castle. One day when he was hunting, one of the Draken came up to get provisions, not knowing that there was anyone in the castle. When he saw Janni's sister, he was terrified, but she told him not to be afraid, and by they fell in love with each other. And for every time that Janni went to hunt, the sister called the Dracos up. Thus they went on, making love to each other till at length, unknown to Janni, they got married. Then, when it was too late, the sister repented, and was afraid of Janni's wrath when he found it out. One day the Dracos came to her and said, "You must pretend to be ill, and when Janni asks what ails you and what you want, you must answer cherries. And when he inquires where these are to be found, you must say, 'They are in the garden, a day's journey from here.' Then your brother will go there, and will never come back, for there dwell 3 of my brothers, who will look after him well." Then the sister did as the Dracos advised, and the next day Janni set out to fetch the cherries, taking his 3 dogs with him. And when he came to the garden where the cherries grew, he jumped off his horse, drank some water from the spring which rose there, and fell directly into a deep sleep. The Draken came round about to eat him, but the dogs flung themselves on them and tore them to pieces, and scratched a grave in the ground with their paws, and buried the Draken, so that Janni might not see their dead bodies. Smart dogs. When Janni awoke, he saw his dogs all covered with blood, and believed that they had caught somewhere a wild beast, and was angry because they had left none of it for him. But he plucked the cherries and took them back to his sister. When the Dracos heard that Janni had come back, he fled for fear 40 fathoms underground. And the sister ate the cherries and declared herself well again. The next day, when Janni was gone to hunt, the Dracos came out, and advised the sister that she should pretend to be ill again, and when her brother asked her what she would like, she should answer, "Kinses." And when he inquired where these were to be found, she should say, "In a garden distant about 2 days' journey." Then would Janni certainly be destroyed, for there dwelt 6 brothers of the Drakus, each of whom had 2 heads. The sister did as she was advised, and the next day Janni set off again, taking his 3 dogs with him. When he came to the garden, he dismounted, sat down to rest a little, and fell fast asleep. First there came 3 Draken around about to eat him, and these 3 had been worried by the dogs. Then came 3 others who were worried in like manner. When the dogs again dug a grave and buried the dead Draken, that their master might not see them, when Janni awoke and beheld the dogs all covered with blood, and he thought, as before, that they had killed a wild beast, and was again angry with them for leaving him nothing. But he took the kinses and brought them back to his sister, who, when she had eaten them, declared herself better. The Dracos, when he heard that Janni had come back, fled for fear for 40 fathoms deeper underground. Next day, when Janni was hunting, the Dracos went to the sister and advised that she should again pretend to be ill, and should beg for some pears which grew in the garden 3 days' journey away. From this quest, Janni would certainly never return, for there dwelt 9 brothers of the Dracos, each of whom had 3 heads. The sister did as she was told, and the next day Janni, taking his 3 dogs with him, went to get the pears. When he came to the garden, he laid himself down to rest and soon fell asleep. Then first came 3 Draken to eat him, and when the dogs had worried these, 6 others came and fought the dogs for a long time. The noise of this combat woke Janni, and he slew the Draken, and knew why at last the dogs were covered with blood. After that he freed all whom the Draken held prisoners, among others a king's daughter. Out of gratitude she would have taken him for her husband, but he put her off, saying, "For the kindness that I would have been able to do so, you shall receive in this castle all the blind and lame who pass this way." The princess promised to do so, and on his departure gave him a ring. So Janni plucked the pears and took them to his sister, who, when she had eaten them, declared she felt better. When, however, the Dracos heard that Janni had come back yet a 3rd time safe and sound, he fled for fright 40 fathoms deeper underground, and the next day when Janni was away hunting, he crept out and said to his sister, "Now we are indeed both lost, unless it's find out from him where then his strength lies. And then between us we will contrive a way to do away with him." When, therefore, Janni came back from hunting, and sat at evening with his sister by the fire, she begged him to tell her wherein lay his strength, and he answered, "It lies in my 2 fingers. If these are bound together, then all my strength disappears." "That I will not believe," said the sister, "unless I see it for myself." Then he let her tie his fingers together with a thread, and he immediately became powerless. Then the sister called up Dracos, who, when he had come forth, tore out Janni's eyes and gave them to his dogs to eat, and threw him into a dry well. Now it happened that some travelers going to draw water from this well heard Janni groaning at the bottom. They came near and asked him where he was, and he begged them to draw him up from the well, for he was a poor, unfortunate man. The travelers let a rope down and drew him up to daylight. It was not till then that he first became aware that he was blind, and he begged the travelers to lead him to the country of the king whose daughter he had freed, and they would be repaid for their trouble. When they had brought him there, he sent to beg the princess to come to him, but she did not recognize him till he had shown her the ring she had given him. Then she remembered him and took him with her into the castle, where she learnt what had befallen him. She called together all the sorceresses in the country in order that they should tell her where the eyes were. At last she found one who declared that she knew where they were, and that she could restore them. This sorceress went straight to the castle where dwelt the sister and the Dracos, and gave something to the dogs to eat, which caused the eyes to reappear. Ew. She took them with her and put them back in Janni's head, so that he saw as well as before. Then he returned to the castle of the Dracos, whom he slew as well as his sister, and taking his dogs with him, went back to the princess, and they were immediately married. So his sister's a scaly. She's out there banging a dragon. Uh, okay, that was... how many stories is it now? That was only 2, wasn't it? That's not that many, too, because I've been talking... Look, Brown Bear of Norway, Janni and Draken. Okay. I want to do at least 2 more stories. Let's see if I... 7 pages, half an hour. I should be able to do it. Actually, do a minute of ads and see if that resets the timer some. So, go grab a drink or something, come back, and I'll get started when we come back. Okay? Nice. Let's see. That says it disables pre-roll ads for 55 minutes. Nice. Ugh. Need a drink. I finished my cheese. I finished my Snickers. I'm not going to eat a Bing Boozle until this thing. Subathon. But I'm switching water bottles. Okay. Welcome back to the place that you used to. Okay. Again, gonna try to get 2 more stories done tonight. The ads should be clear for an hour, give or take. So it shouldn't be any problem. Right? Right. Left? Maybe. Where is... Not doing none to the people here. Ow! I thought I got a paper cut. I would hate to bleed on a book. All I need is my blood and more books. No, I don't write my books in blood. Or whatever give you that idea. Okay. What is a lap? A lap is a rabbit, I believe. Nope. Laplander. Okay, it's a person. Crap, give me a second. Need to blow the snot. Now I'm back. I'm sorry that the switch on my microphone is very loud. Our next story, third for the evening, The Fox and the Lapp, from the Brown Fairy Book. Once upon a time, a fox lay peeping out of his hole, watching the road that ran by at a little distance, and hoping to see something that might amuse him, for he was feeling dull and rather cross. For a long while he watched in vain. Everything seemed asleep. Not even a bird stirred overhead. The fox grew crosser than ever, and he was just turning away in disgust from his place when he heard the sound of feet coming over the snow. He crouched eagerly down to the edge of the road and said to himself, "I wonder what would happen if I were to pretend to be dead. This is a man driving a reindeer sled. I think I know the tinkling of the harness, and at any rate I shall have an adventure, and that is always something." So he stretched himself out by the side of the road, carefully choosing a spot where the driver would not help seeing him, yet where the reindeer would not tread on him and fall out just as they expected. The sledge driver pulled up sharply, and his eyes lighted upon the beautiful animal lying stiffly beside him. And jumping out, he threw the fox into the bottom of his sled, where the goods he was carrying were bound tightly by rope. The fox did not move a muscle, though his bones were sore from the fall, and the driver got back into his seat again, and drove on merrily. But before they had gone very far, the fox, who was near the edge, contrived to slip over, and when the Laplander saw him stretched out on the snow, he pulled up his reindeer and put the fox into one of the other sledges that was fastened behind him. For it was market day at the nearest town, and the man had much to sell. They drove a little further, and then some noise in the forest made the man turn his head, just in time to see the fox fall with a heavy thump on the frozen snow. "This beast is bewitched," he said to himself, and then threw the fox into the last sledge of all, which had a cargo of fishes. This was exactly what the cunning creature wanted, and he wriggled gently in front of the cord and bit the cord which tied the sledge to the other one, so that it remained standing in the middle of the road. Now, there were many sledges that the Lapp did not notice for a long while when that one was missing. Indeed, he would have entered town without knowing if snow had not suddenly begun to fall. Then he got down to secure more firmly the cloths that kept his goods dry, and going to the end of the long row, discovered that the sledge containing the fish and the fox was missing. He quickly unharnessed one of his reindeer and rode back along the way he had come, to find the sledge standing safe in the middle of the road. But as the fox had bitten off the cord, there was no means of moving it away. The fox, meanwhile, was enjoying himself mightily. As soon as he had loosened the sledge, he had taken his favorite fish from among the piles neatly arranged for sale, and had trotted off to the forest with it in his mouth. By and by he met a bear, who stopped and said, "Where did you find that fish, Mr. Fox?" "Not far off," answered he. "I just stuck my tail in the stream close by the place where the elves dwell, and the fish hung itself upon it." What's this kind of story? "Dear me," snarled the bear, who was hungry and not in a good temper. "If the fish hung on your tail, I suppose he will hang on mine." "Yes, certainly, grandfather," replied the fox, "if you have patience to suffer what I have suffered." "Of course I can," replied the bear. "What nonsense you talk. Show me the way." So the fox led him to the bank of a stream, which, being in a warm place, had only slightly frozen in places, and was at this moment glittering in the spring sunshine. "The elves bathe there," he said, "and if you put in your tail, fish will catch hold of it. But it is no use being in a hurry, or it will spoil everything." Then he trotted off, but only went out of sight of the bear, who stood still on the bank with his tail deep in the water. Soon the sun set, and it grew very cold, and the ice formed rapidly, and the bear's tail was fixed as tight as if a vice had held it. And when the fox saw that everything had happened just as he had planned, he called out loudly, "Be quick, good people, and come with your bows and spears! The bear has been fishing in your brook!" Foxes. And in a moment the whole place was full of little creatures, each one with a tiny bow and a spear, being hardly big enough for a baby. But both arrows and spears could sting, as the bear very well knew. And in his fright he gave such a tug to his tail that it broke off short, and he rolled away into the forest as fast as his legs could carry him. At this, the fox held his sides laughing, and then crept into a hole near the roots. After that, he did something very strange. Taking one of his hind feet between his front two paws, and said softly, "What would you do, my foot, if someone was to betray me?" "I would run so quickly that he should not catch you."
What would you do, mine ear, if someone was to betray me? I would listen so hard that I should hear all his plans. And what would you do, my nose, if someone was to betray me? I would smell so sharply that I should know from afar that he was coming. What would you do, my tail, if someone was to betray me? I would steer you straight a course that would soon be beyond his reach. Let us be off. I feel as if danger is near.
But the fox was comfortable where he was, and he did not hurry himself to take his tail's advice. And before very long he found that he was too late, for the bear had come round by another path, and guessing where his enemy was, began to scratch at the roots of the tree. The fox made himself as small as he could, but a scrap of his tail peeped out, and the bear seized it and held it tight. Then the fox dug his claws in the ground, but he was not strong enough to pull against the bear, and slowly he was dragged forth, and his body flung over the bear's neck. In this manner they set out down the road, the fox's tail always being in the bear's mouth. After they'd gone some way, they passed a tree stump, on which a bright-colored woodpecker was tapping.
Ah, those were better times when I used to paint all the birds such gay colors,
said the fox.
"What are you talking about, old fellow?" asked the bear.
I? Oh, nothing. I was saying nothing, answered the fox steerily. Just carry me to your cave and eat me up as quick as you can.
Bear was silent and thought of his supper, and the two continued their journey until they reached another tree with a woodpecker tapping on it.
Ah, those were better times when I used to paint all the birds such gay colors,
said the fox again.
"Couldn't paint me too?"
asked the bear suddenly. But the fox shook his head, for he was always acting, even if no one was there to see it.
You bear paint so badly, he replied in a thoughtful voice, and you are impatient besides, and could never put up with all that is necessary. Why, you would have to first dig a pit, and then twist ropes of willow, and drive in posts to fill the hole with pitch, and last of all set it on fire. Oh no, you would never be able to do all that.
"Does not matter a straw how hard it is," answered the bear eagerly. "I will do every bit of it."
And as he spoke, he began tearing up the earth so fast that soon a deep pit was ready, deep enough to hold him.
That is all right, said the fox at last. I see I was mistaken in you. Now sit here and I will bind you.
The bear sat down on the edge of the pit, and the fox sprang on his back, which he crossed with the willow ropes, and then set fire to the pitch. It burnt up in an instant, and caught the bands of willow and the bear's rough hair. But he did not stir, for he thought that the fox was rubbing the bright colors into his skin, and that he would soon be as beautiful as a whole meadow of flowers. But when the fire grew hotter till he moved uneasily from one foot to the other, saying imploringly,
"It is getting rather warm, old man."
But all the answer he got was,
I thought you would never be able to suffer pain like those little birds.
the bear did not like being told that he was not as brave as a bird. So he set his teeth and resolved to endure anything sooner than speak again. But by this time the last willow band had burned through, and with a push the fox sent his victim tumbling into the grass and ran off to hide himself in the forest. After a while he stole cautiously and found, as he expected, nothing left but a few charred bones. These he picked up and put in a bag, which he slung over his back. By and by he met a Lapp driving his team of reindeer along the road, and as he drew near, the fox rattled the bones gaily. "That sounds like silver or gold," thought the man to himself, and he said politely to the fox, "Good day, friend. What have you got in your bag that makes such a strange sound?"
"All the wealth my father left me," answered the fox. "You feel inclined to bargain?"
"Well, I don't mind," replied the Lapp, who was a prudent man and did not wish the fox to think him too eager. "But show me first what money you have got."
"Ah, but I can't do that," answered the fox. "My bag is sealed up, but if you will give me those 3 reindeer, you shall take it as it is, with all its contents."
The Lapp did not quite like it, but the fox spoke with such an air that his doubts melted away. He nodded and stretched out his hand, and the fox put the bag into it and unharnessed the reindeer he had chosen.
"Oh, I forgot,"
he exclaimed, turning round as he was about to drive in the opposite direction.
"You must be sure not to open the bag until you have gone at least 5 miles, right on the other side of those hills out there. If you do, you will find that all the gold and silver has changed into a torso of charred bones."
When he whipped up his reindeer and was soon out of sight. For some time the Lapp was satisfied with hearing the bones rattle, and thinking to himself what a good bargain he had made, and all the things that he could buy with that money. But after a bit his amusement ceased to content him, and besides, what was the use of planning when you did not know for certain how rich you were? Perhaps there might be a great deal of silver and only a little gold in the bag, or maybe a great deal of silver and only a little silver. Who could tell? He would not, of course, take the money out to count it, for that might bring him bad luck. But there could be no harm in just one peek. So he slowly broke the seal and untied the strings, and behold, a heap of burnt bones lay before him. In a minute he knew that he had been tricked, and flinging the bag to the ground in rage, he ran after the fox as fast as his snowshoes could carry him. Now the fox had guessed exactly what would happen and was on the lookout. Directly he saw a little speck coming towards him, and wished that the man's snowshoes might break. And that very instant, the Lapp's shoes snapped in half. The Lapp did not know that this was the fox's work, but he had to stop and fetch one of his other reindeer, which he mounted and set off again in pursuit of his enemy. The fox soon heard him coming, and this time he wished that the reindeer might fall and break his leg. And so it did. And the man felt it was a hopeless chase, and that he was no match for the fox. So the fox drove on in peace until he reached the cave where all his stores were kept, and then he began to wonder whom he could get to help him kill his reindeer. For though he could steal reindeer, he was too small to kill them.
"After all, it will be quite easy," he thought, as he bade a squirrel who was watching him from a tree close by to message all of the robber beasts of the forest. And in less than half an hour a great crashing of branches was heard, and bears, wolves, snakes, mice, frogs, and other creatures came pressing up to the cave.
When they had heard that they had been summoned, they declared themselves each one ready to do his part. The bear took his crossbow from his neck and shot the reindeer in the chin. And from that day to this, every reindeer has a mark in that same spot, which is always known as the bear's arrow. Interesting. The wolf took a shot at him in the thigh, and the sign of his arrow still remains. And so with the mouse and the viper and all the rest, even the frog, and at last the reindeer all died. And the fox did nothing but looked on.
I really must go down to the brook and wash myself,
he said, though he was perfectly clean. And he went under the bank and hid himself behind a stone. From there he set up the most frightful shrieks, so that the animals fled away in all directions. Only the mouse and the ermine remained where they were, for they thought that they were much too small to be noticed. The fox continued his shrieks till he felt sure that all the animals must have got a safe distance. Then he crawled out of his hiding place and went to the bodies of the reindeer, which he now had all to himself. He gathered a bundle of sticks for a fire and just prepared to cook a steak when his enemy, the Lapp, came up, panting with haste and excitement. "What are you doing here?" cried he. "Why did you palm off those bones on me? And why, when you got the reindeer, did you kill them?"
Dear brother,
answered the fox with a sob,
do not blame me for this misfortune. It is my comrades who have slain them in spite of my prayers.
The man made no reply, for the white fur of the ermine, who was crouching with the mouse behind some stones, had just caught his eye. He hastily seized an iron hook which hung over the fire and flung it at the little creature. But the ermine was too quick for him, and the hook only touched the top of his tail, and that has remained black to this day. As for the mouse, the Lapp threw a half-burnt stick at him, and though it was not enough to hurt him, his beautiful white skin was smeared all over it, and all the washing in the world could not make him clean again. And the man would have been wiser if he had let the ermine and mouse alone, for when he turned around again, he found he was alone. Directly the fox noticed that his enemy's attention had wandered from him, watched his chance, and stole softly away until he had reached the clump of thick bushes, when he ran as fast as he could until he reached a river, where a man was mending his boat.
Oh, I do wish I had a boat to mend too,
he cried, sitting up on his hind legs and looking into the man's fan. "Stop your silly chatter," answered the man crossly, "or I will give you a bath in the river."
Oh, I do wish I had a boat to mend, cried the fox again,
as if he had not heard. And the man grew angry and seized him by the tail and threw him far out in the stream close to the edge of an island, which was just what the fox had wanted. He easily scrambled up, and sitting on the top, he called,
Hasten, hasten, O fishes, and carry me to the other side.
And the fishes left the stones where they had been sleeping, and the pools where they had been feeding, and hurried to see who could get to the island first. "I have won!" shouted a pike. "Jump on my back, dear fox, and you will find yourself in a trice of the opposite shore."
No, thank you, replied the fox again. I should slip over your head and be drowned.
No, that was wrong. This is
The pike is, "Your back is much too weak for me. I should break it."
"Try mine," said the eel, who had wriggled in front.
"No, thank you," the fox replied again. "I should slip over your head and be drowned."
"You won't slip on my back," said a perch, coming forward.
"No, you are really too rough," returned the fox.
"Well, you can find no fault with me," put the trout.
"Good gracious! Are you here?" exclaimed the fox. "But I'm afraid to trust myself with you either."
At this moment, a fine salmon swam slowly up. You,
"Ah, yes, you are the person I want," said the fox. "But come near so that I may get on your back without wetting my feet."
So the salmon swam closer to the island, and when he was touching it, the fox seized him in his claws and drew him out of the water, and put him on a spit, while he quickly kindled a fire to cook him by. When everything was ready and the water was in the pot and was getting hot, he popped him in and waited till he thought the salmon was nearly boiled. But as he stopped down in the water, he gave a sudden fizzle, and splashed in the fox's eyes, blinding him. He started backwards in a cry of pain, and sat still for many minutes, rocking himself to and fro. When he was a little better, he rose and walked down the road till he met a grouse. Foxes.
"Have you a pair of eyes anywhere about you?" asked the fox politely.
"No, I'm afraid I haven't," answered the grouse, and passed on. A little while the fox had heard the buzzing of an early bee, whom a gleam of sun had tempted out.
"Do you happen to have an extra pair of eyes anywhere?"
asked the fox. "I'm sorry to say I only have the two that I'm using," replied the bee. And the fox went on till he nearly fell over an asp who was gliding across the road.
"I would be so glad if you would tell me where I can get a pair of eyes," said the fox. "I suppose you don't happen to have any you could lend me?"
"Well, if you only want to use them for a short time, perhaps I could manage," answered the asp. "But I can't do without them for long."
"Oh, it is only a very short time that I need them," said the fox. "I have my own pair just behind the hill, and when I find them I will bring yours back to you. Perhaps you will keep these till then."
So he took his eyes out of his head and popped them into the head of the asp, and put the asp's eyes in their place. He was running off. He cried over his shoulder,
"As long as the world lasts, the asp's eyes will go down in the heads of foxes for generations to generation."
and so it has been. If you look at the eyes of an asp, you will see that they are all burnt. And though thousands of years have gone since the fox was going about playing his tricks on everyone he met, the asp still bears the traces of the day when the silly creature cooked the salmon. The hell. It's a 3-minute ad break. Damn it. I'd hoped that running the minute would have prevented that. But apparently it's still 2 minutes bad. So I will get another drink because I'm thirsty. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Minute left. My shoulder's starting to ache. I got one more story to do. But, thank everyone who's come in. Whether you've just been lurking or I just haven't noticed you in chat, I do appreciate anyone who comes in. And I really do enjoy doing the Friday Night Fairy Tales. So, it is telling me that the ads are almost done. So I will sit back up. Ugh. And we will get to our last story for the evening. Right. How long is this story? It is fairly short. So let's go ahead and get into it. And I will probably mispronounce several words in this. Okay. The last story for the night is Motikatika from the Crimson Fairy book. Sorry. There was a fly on my glasses, so I apologize. Anyway, last story for the night. Motikatika from the Crimson Fairy book. Once upon a time, in a very hot country, a man lived with his wife in a little hut, which was surrounded by grass and flowers. And they were perfectly happy together till, by and by, the woman fell ill and refused to take any food. The husband tried to persuade her to eat all sorts of delicious fruits that he had found in the forest, but she would have none of them, and grew so thin he feared that she would die. "Is there nothing you would like?" he said at last in despair. Sorry.
Yes, I think I could eat some wild honey,
Answered she. The husband was overjoyed for he thought she sounded easy enough to get, and he went at once in search of it. He came back with a wooden pan quite full and gave it to his wife.
I can't eat that,
She said, and turned away in disgust.
Look, there are some dead bees in it. I want honey that is quite pure.
And the man threw the rejected honey on the grass and started off to get some fresh. When he got back, he offered it to his wife, who treated it as she had done the first bowlful.
That honey has got ants in it. Throw it away,
She said, and when he brought her some more, she declared it was full of earth. In his fourth journey, he managed to find some that she would eat, and then she begged him to get some water. This took him some time, but at length he came to a lake whose waters were sweetened with sugar. He filled a pannikin quite full and carried it home to his wife, who drank it eagerly, and now that she said she felt quite well. When she was up and had dressed herself, her husband lay down in her place and sang, "You have given me a great deal of trouble. Now it is my turn."
What is the matter with you?
Asked the wife. "I am thirsty and want some water," answered he. And she took a large pot and carried it to the nearby spring, which was a good way off.
Here's the water,
she said to her husband, lifting the heavy pot from her head, and he turned away in disgust.
You have drawn it from
the pool that is full of frogs and willows. You must get me some more." So the woman set out again and walked still further to another lake. "This water is full of rushes," he exclaimed. "Go and get some fresh." But when she brought back a third supply, he declared that it seemed made up of water lilies, and that he must have water that is pure and not spoilt by willows, frogs, or rushes. So for the fourth time she put on her jug on her head, and passing all lakes she had hitherto tried, she came to another, where the water was golden like honey. She stooped down to drink, when a horrible head bobbed up to the surface.
How dare you steal my water?
Cried the head.
It is my husband who has sent me,
she replied, trembling all over.
But do not kill me. You shall have my baby if you will only let me go. How am I to know which is your baby?
Asked the ogre.
Oh, that is easily managed. I will shave both sides of his head and hang some white beads around his neck. And when you come to the hut, you have to only call out Motikatika, and he will run to meet you, and you can eat him.
Very well,
said the ogre.
You can go home.
And after filling the pot, she returned and told her husband of the dreadful danger she had been in. Now, though his mother did not know it, their baby, was a magician, and had heard all that his mother had promised the ogre, and he laughed to himself as he planned to outwit her. The next morning she shaved his head on both sides, and hung the white beads around his neck, and said to him,
I am going to the field to work. You must stay at home. Be sure you do not go outside, or some wild beast may eat you up.
Very well, he answered. As soon as his mother was out of sight, the baby took out some magic bones and placed them in a row before him. Because, of course, babies have names.
You are my father,
He told one bone.
and you are my mother. You are the biggest, he said to the third, so you shall be the ogre who wants to eat me. And you, to another, are very little, therefore you shall be me. Now then, tell me what I am to do.
Collect all the babies in the village the same size as yourself, answered the bones. Shave the sides of their heads and hang white beads round their necks, and tell them that when anybody calls Motikatika, they are to answer to it. And be quick, for you have no time to lose.
Motikatika went out directly and brought back quite a crowd of babies and shaved their heads and hung white beads around their little black necks. And just as he had finished, the ground began to shake, and the huge ogre came striding along, crying,
Motikatika! Motikatika!
I told you I'd mispronounce this one.
Here we are,
Answered the babies, and all running to meet him.
It is Motikatika I want,
Said the ogre.
We are all Motikatika.
They replied, and the ogre sat down in bewilderment, for he dared not eat the children of the people who had done him no wrong. Nice ogre. Or heavy punishment would befall him. The children waited for a little, wondering, and then they went away. The ogre remained where he was till the evening, when the woman returned from the fields.
I have not seen Motikatika, he said.
But why did you not call him by his name, as I told you? She asked.
I did, but all the babies in the village seem to be named Motikatika,
Answered the ogre.
You cannot think the number who came running to me.
The woman did not know what to make of it, so to keep him in a good temper, she entered the hut and prepared a bowl of maize, which she brought him.
I do not want maize, I want the baby,
he grumbled.
And I will have him.
Have patience, answered she. I will call him, and you can eat him up at once. And she went into the hut and cried,
Motikatika!
I'm coming, mother, replied he. But first he took out his bones, and crouching down to the ground behind the hut, asked them how he should escape the ogre.
Change yourself into a mouse,
said the bones. And so he did, and the ogre grew tired of waiting and told the woman she must invent some other plan. Tomorrow I shall send him into the field to pick some beans for me. You'll find him there, and you can eat him.
Very well,
replied the ogre.
And this time I will take care to have him.
And he went back to his lake. Next morning, Motikatika was sent out with a basket and told to pick some beans for dinner. On the way to the field, he took out his bones and asked them what he was to do to escape from the ogre.
Change yourself into a bird and snap off the beans,
said the bones. And the ogre chased away the bird, not knowing that it was Motikatika.
Very well, replied the bones. And this time I will take care to have him. And he went back to his lake. Next morning, Motikatika was sent out with a basket and told to pick some beans for dinner. On the way to the field, he took out his bones and asked them what he was to do to escape from the ogre.
Change yourself into a bird, not knowing that it was Motikatika. The ogre went back to the hut and told the woman that she had deceived him again, and that he would not be put off for any longer.
"Return here this evening," answered she, "and you will find him in bed under his white coverlet. Then you can carry him off and eat him at once."
But the boy heard and consulted his bones, which said,
"Take the red coverlet from your father's bed and put yours on his."
and so he did. And when the ogre came, he seized Motikatika's father and carried him outside the hut and ate him. When his wife found out the mistake, she cried bitterly, but Motikatika said,
"It is only just that he should be eaten and not I, for it was he and not I who sent you to fetch the water."
Kids, man. Okay. At least I got to do a good ogre voice for the night. Ugh. So, 4 stories. 2 hours ago, I started this novel. My camera does not like me leaning back. But anyway, I'm doing a subathon on the 26th. Anyone who was here for the first 20 minutes of the stream got to hear me rant and rave about what the rewards were. There is actually a raffle if I manage to make it over 70 subs. But I did not mention that on the card because I don't really think I'll get more than 40. If I got 40, I'd be happy. As then that'll at least get the 4 copies of the book, awarded. If I manage to get 50, it would be cool, and someone would get, like, my copy of the proof with all my notes in it. If I did 60, that would just be torture. Well, no. 60 is not a bad one. 60 is me giving you a special thanks in the next book. It's the punishments that are the torture. Because those are over on the screen. Because I don't know if I want to do a wheel or just stage levels. Because I have it that for every death I eat a bean. If I make it to 5 deaths, I do a shot. If I do 10 deaths, I attempt to sight read. And I'm so freaking out of practice playing, it'll be torture. I'll try to at least do 2 lines if I get to the full page. But that means I will actually have my bass ukulele plugged into my computer. Yeah, fun times. Anyway, let's see who all is on to raid. I hear Oni's still going. Look. Yes, Oni is going. Dusk is going. Neko Mom is going. Ouch. I need to stretch because I've been sitting here for a while. Ow. Hmm. If anyone has stations, by all means. Pretty sure most people have enough points that I could do it. Guilty's lurking, so... How you doing, Guilty? Hope you're having a good day. So... I don't know who all is here. So let me go ahead and just... Oh, right on me. So let me go ahead and... Can't type. F. I can't spell raid. Raid Shadow Legends. Can't believe I tried to do a sponsorship for that. Okay. So follower raid. And subby raid. And feel free to copy either one of those. And we spell Red Oni. So, I hope everyone has a good night, a good weekend, and all that fun stuff. And I will hopefully see you next time. So, have a good night, and see you over in Oni's. Just playing Phantophobia, so this might be a jump scare. All the more fun to do it, right?